Hello and welcome to the WIHS Journal Public Affairs program. I'm Jerry Williams. Jose and Evette Rivera are family pastors at Lifeway Church in Newington. And today you're going to hear the amazing story of Evette Rivera. Happening now on the WIHS Journal, it's news and public affairs.
So I was born and raised in Boston, and I've lived in Connecticut now for about 15 years or so. Growing up in Boston, things were rough. I grew up to parents that battled addiction, and they both were in and out of prison. So I went to foster care for several years, from 6 to about 12 years old. It was rough. The first foster home that I was in with my brother, there was a lot of abuse, physical, sexual, emotional torment. I finally got the courage, I guess you would say, to let a counselor know what was going on, and was taken out of that home. And then we were put into a good home for 4 years. They were very loving. Until this day, I call them Mommy and Papi. I go and visit them every year, sometimes twice a year if I can. But they actually showed me love. And they were Catholic. That was the first introduction to God or faith that I had. They brought me to church every Sunday. They actually brought all their foster kids to church. I was happy to be introduced to faith, but I didn't connect a lot with, I didn't confess to the priest. I didn't pray to the saints. I always tell people now that I always felt like there was a disconnect. I love them for introducing me to the faith, but I didn't connect to confession to the priest or to this, praying to the saints. Something just was off for me. So I left their home when I was going on 13. Went back with my mom. She had come out of prison, went through a program, gotten her life together, or so they said. But we still were like oil and water. We didn't really get along. She was still, an alcoholic, struggling with that addiction, and, dating really bad men in her life. And so I struggled with depression. And it actually started when I was 6, but I wasn't diagnosed till I got a little older. And so when I moved back with my mom, I was heavily struggling with depression. I tried to commit suicide. I was in and out of institutions. So from 13 to 15, I was in and out of institutions. And really it was being at home. It was very toxic. We just were oil and vinegar. We didn't really get along. She didn't know how to be a mom, and I didn't know how to be her daughter. And so every time I would go home, I would cut myself, or I would do something to get sent back to the institution. At 15, I went to Job Corps, and, the group home that I was in sold me a dream. This is great. You'll get a trade. You'll finish school. But actually, in Job Corps is where I got introduced to weed. It's where I got introduced to alcohol, as far as me partaking in it. And so that's where my addiction began at 15 on a Job Corps campus. And I wound up having a panic attack, and they kicked me out of Job Corps and sent me home to my mom. And my mom got a call from Job Corps, and she said, Job Corps doesn't want you back. I was too much trouble. And she's like, and I don't want you here. So I don't know what you're going to do. At that point, I had made friends with a girl on campus and had met her brother. And so she took me in, her family took me in Connecticut. And so I moved here for a little bit as a teenager, got pregnant with my daughter, my 23-year-old daughter, and still struggled with depression. Even when I was pregnant with my daughter, I was struggling heavily. I remember being pregnant with her and trying to commit suicide. I tried to hang myself. And the rope broke, thank goodness. But I felt her kicking within me, and I felt horrible because I loved my baby. But the depression and the darkness and the heaviness, it was so suffocating that I just wanted to die. And even though I loved this precious girl within me, she wasn't enough reason for me to live. And it broke my heart because I loved her so much. And I thank God every day that the rope did break, and that, he didn't just save me, he saved my precious Angie. After that, I had her. I was still struggling with addiction. I was clean when I was pregnant with her. But afterwards, I went right back to drinking. I was doing ecstasy, marijuana here and there. And the addiction was really bad. So I was with her father for 5 years. Then, we separated, and I again tried to commit suicide because I was like, again, someone is leaving. Someone is leaving my life. I took a whole pill of, I think it was Tylenol, and her father and her were out. And I wrote a goodbye letter to my daughter on the computer, apologizing, telling her that I just couldn't live, that even though I loved her, it was just so suffocating and just so dark. And so I took this bottle of medicine, and I remember laying on the floor, My stomach was on fire. I felt like I was dying. And her father comes home and he's like, sees the bottle, empty bottle, sees the computer. He's like, what did you do? I'm going to call 911. And I said, no, don't call 911. They're going to take her away. Like, I had taken these pills to die, but then I'm like, I don't want them to take my daughter away. And so for 3 days straight, I didn't go to the hospital. For 3 days straight, I threw up nothing but poison. Like bile, just like the poison was just coming out of me. And I remember the third day I was walking, and I didn't know God except for the introduction that my foster parents had given me. But I remember looking up to the sky, and I said to the Lord, I said, if you save my life, I will never try to kill myself again. Please don't let me die. Because I felt so frail. I felt so weak because I had taken all this poison into my body, did not go to the hospital. It's like God pumped it out of me, and I survived. And so after that, I never did try to commit suicide again, but I still had issues with cutting. I still cut when I was depressed or struggling. So we left. We moved to Boston, my daughter and I. We lived there for a few years, first with my mom because I had nowhere to go. So I went back home, quickly got a job and got my own place and stayed away from my mom's house. And then fast forward a few years, things fell apart in Boston. We came back to Connecticut with her grandmother, her father's mom. And, I, again, did not want to live with people for too long. So I got a job, got my own place, met my husband, not my oldest daughter, but the father of all my children. I met him because he was my daughter's after-school teacher. I went to go pick her up one day, bumped into him, and we started communicating about my daughter. Then I was late one day to pick her up, and he gave me his number so that if I was running late again, I could call.
Yeah, call this number.
Yes. And he'll tell you a different story than I would. But anyways, that's how we met. We started dating. And, we both met and we were both a mess. I was a mess. He was a mess. We didn't know the Lord. We each had our own issues, things that we needed to be delivered from. I was battling heavily with alcohol addiction. I mean, my kids never saw it. Like, I would hide it from them. But I was drinking a liter of vodka, like, a day, and it would not even faze me. Like, I functioned. I went throughout my day. But after the birth of my 14-year-old daughter, so in 2011, my husband and I just had this moment where we were like, I want to go to church. Like, we both were missing something. He had been in the Lord. He had been going to church. Something happened to him and he fell away. I, besides going with my foster parents, had never had a relationship. I was never saved. Like, I never had given my life to Christ. But we both decided we wanted to go to church. So we went to his old church. He went back to where he had came from. And then I went with him. And within a year, like, God did some amazing things. I remember when I first started there, I was still struggling with depression. I was still heavy. And people were praying for me, praying that I would be healed, praying that I would be delivered. And for 20 years of my life, I had been depressed. I had been on all sorts of medications. I had seen over 11 or so therapists, more than that, because as a foster kid, you see a therapist all the time. But I was always changing them. I don't like this one. I don't like that one. And so I went to church and they prayed for me. And I remember going to church and them praying for me and me praying for myself. But I didn't really believe. I didn't believe that God could deliver me. Like, okay, he's a deliverer, but not my deliverer. And I remember after going to church and having people pray for me, I prayed. And there was one night I was praying and I said, God, I believe you're real. I believe you are who you say you are. Please deliver me. Please take this away from me. And I woke up the next day and I wasn't heavy anymore. Mm-hmm. And I tell people, if you've struggled with depression, you know that heaviness is like a cloak that just doesn't come off of you. And I woke up and I was light. And I have never felt light in my life. And so for 20 years of this heaviness and darkness and then feeling light. And I said, I'm free. And then God said, basically God led me not to take my medication. I said, well, I know, I think I still need to take it. So for like a week, I still took it. But then I was like, but why? Mm-hmm. It hasn't helped me for 20 years. Why would I keep taking it? So I got off my medication. God just miraculously delivered and healed me, and I didn't need it anymore. And then a little after that, I was delivered from alcohol and nicotine. And one by one, God just delivered me from all these things. And now my husband and I, we are so different. He's healed our relationship. He's healed our marriage. He's healed us. And everything has transformed because of that.
And you just heard my conversation with Evette Rivera, who will be hosting a conference entitled Songs of Deliverance, where men and women will be sharing powerful testimonies. Saturday, November 22nd, 277 Main Street in Hartford. For more information, visit our community calendar at WIHSradio.org. I'm Jerry Williams for the WIHS Journal. It's news and public affairs.